Last week I spoke at length on character deconstruction, but today I wanted to address a similar albeit shorter point, which is the deconstruction of objects. And by objects I am being vague and simply meaning anything that isn't a character. Something that I've noticed that seems to happen a lot in modern films, especially sequels and prequels, is the revelation of the origin of each and every meaningful thing within a story. It's where something that Solo was criticised for, as we were told too much about where Han's name came from, his dice, his jacket, his blaster, and his relationship with Chewbacca and the Millennium Falcon. It's not to say that these couldn't have been done, but more that doing all of them at once removed any mystery from the story and dispelled all the assumptions or imaginations of the audience who had watched this character for decades. In The Maltese Falcon, part of the mystery is never knowing quite why the eponymous object is so valuable. The same goes for the ring in The Hobbit, or exactly why Harry's scar is in the shape of a lightning bolt. Leaving these defining and unique aspects of a story, whether it's a name, a mark, a MacGuffin, or a tool, ambiguous is such an important part of storytelling. It creates depth and meaning for your reader as they need to infer the origin of these things instead, but it also adds world building by having these unique things normalized, and thus it expects us to treat them normally too. This is an integral part of drawing us into the world and encouraging us to suspend our disbelief. Sometimes things are just what they are, or their origin isn't important. It can be a sign of weak writing, when you feel the need to show how smart you are and how every little thing has been accounted for in your planning. It's almost a desperation to appeal to nostalgia in lieu of strong stories or characters, in the case of Star Wars, to create subversion or ideological ends to make up for creative deficiencies in the Rings of Power, or simply a lack of confidence in where to go with the story and how to develop the characters more fully, as we can see in the Fantastic Beasts spin-off. Just like with character deconstruction, there is a place for revelation and origin exploration of objects, names, or any other things. In my own book, Sandra is exploring the origin of her painting, and that serves a central arc of the story. The ring is transformed from something minor but magical in The Hobbit to becoming the centerpiece MacGuffin of the later trilogy, along with Sting and Bilbo's mithril vest. And Harry's ability to speak to Parseltongue is explored sufficiently that it doesn't feel out of place and actually plays a role in the story later. The key with good object deconstruction is that you should only do as much as necessary to integrate something unnatural into the story so it doesn't become the elephant in the room. The more unusual the object or the greater its influence on the story, the more you need to spend time helping your reader or audience understand why it is there in the first place. This is why the dice and blaster exploration in Solo were so unnecessary. They have no bearing on the story, and their existence is explained by the world they exist in. The xenomorphs in Alien require zero explanation for their existence because the setting of the story allows them to slot in without issue, as extraterrestrials are very much an expectation in a sci-fi film, especially one called Alien. The Predator in the film of the same name needs a little more explanation, but not much. Its presence is a mystery, and the film tells the story and its characteristics intuitively, such as showing us the spaceship at the start and some of its habits and behaviours, so we have enough information to imply meaning. Having Dutch read a book on the Predator's origin for 20 minutes would ruin the film, even if it meant we fully understood his adversary. The Ark of the Covenant or the Holy Grail need no explanation for what they are and how they came to be, as they are deeply embedded in the collective cultural understanding of the audience. This is where the Dial of Destiny tripped up compared to its predecessors, as they used the Antikythera, which was far less well known, and then they over-explained it to death, so that the mystery was lost and the object felt very out of place. The best writers can bring these anomalies into the story and explain their existence through inference or setting, by creating rules that are consistent with such a thing being present, or having the story and characters react in such a way that we really would if such an object came to be. If you must explain, and it can be debatable if you need to do so at all if your setting justifies it, do so just enough to build intrigue, but not so much that it ruins the mystery. If you find yourself being tempted to explain each and everything, then you've probably done something wrong in the story that makes filler necessary to pad it out, or you've not laid the groundwork, world building or foreshadowing enough to avoid telling. The secret plans in the 39 steps are not explained. The briefcase in Pulp Fiction is not revealed, and the 310 humor never arrives without note. Sometimes what things are is what they are. Sometimes a name is just a name, and a pair of dice is just that. Sometimes a ring is more than a ring, and sometimes the Death Star plans serve as a MacGuffin and nothing more. The more you dig and explain, the more you risk getting bogged down in the weeds. The more you show all your cards, the harder it is to believe the characters have any agency at all. The more you give every little detail about every little thing, the less time you have to focus on your story, which is, after all, why we're writing in the first place.